Welcome in. I'm going to begin today's Saturday morning 49ers show with some tape. Some tape of a prospect who was based just about 20 minutes north of Levi Stadium. This is Sam Roush, tight end, 270-pounder. Look at him blocking. 4'7", 40, 270 pounds, but more importantly to me, the guy is a football player. He can block, and I do think he has some ball skills at the tight end position. We're going to talk about Sam Roush in more depth over the course of this show because as we speak right now, everyone is enamored with testing numbers. And there are some insane testing numbers coming out of the NFL Combine, which wraps up this weekend. Yes, some of those insane testing numbers belong to Sam Roush himself, the tight end out of Stanford, 999 relative athletic score. And I think that the bulk of the hype yesterday when the tight ends ran came from Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, who, I mean, this encapsulates it the best. This is Kenyon Sadiq compared to players from other positions compared to wide receivers. 40-yard dash faster than Odell Beckham's, 10-yard split faster than Deshaun Jackson's, around the same time as Brock Purdy's, by the way. Vertical jump higher than Julio Jones's, broad jump further than Andre Johnson's. The delineation between position groups is getting smaller and smaller. It probably won't exist at the skill positions at some point in the relatively near future with the athleticism that you're seeing from some of these players. But I still have to say, everyone, pump the brakes and make sure that you're watching the tape. And this is nothing against Kenyon Sadiq's tape. He's a really good player. He's not going to be available at number 27 when the 49ers pick. But the 49ers have to look for football players first, especially if they're going to try to get value from the middle rounds. I think this is a really, really good tight end class. And again, I'm going to raise you the film of Sam Roush coming out of Stanford. I think that this is a player that the 49ers should be able to procure with the draft capital that they have. And at least this is the type of player that they're going to want to try to ride the wave of the tight end revolution in this league and to help what was weak for the 49ers last season, which was the run blocking outside of the offensive line and George Kittle. I don't think that Luke Farrell gave the 49ers quite what they needed to. I think that you saw teams like the Rams plow their way to a top 5 run game that really supported Matthew Stafford with 3 tight end sets. I think that the 49ers have long been looking for an appropriate complement to what George Kittle is doing so they can raise their offense to the next level. I've talked about the free agency market and Charlie Kolar, former teammate of Brock Purdy's at Iowa State. He's probably the best blocking free agent on the market. Maybe the 49ers make a run at him for more than one reason, which I could articulate here in a bit. But if you're looking at the draft class, those tight ends tested yesterday. Yes, they ran really fast. Yes, they're very strong. I mean, we've got even more. There are more bench press reps delivered by Kenyon Sadiq and on the 225 bench press of the combine than Trent Williams. I mean, he's got strength that seems to be comparable to some offensive tackles, although he's a little bit lighter, obviously. He's at about 240 pounds. But there is raw material to be procured this offseason so the 49ers can get more competitive at that tight end position. Now, in general, the 49ers, the run game is obviously really important to bolster. I think it's more important than ever now to be able to run the football, especially when you look at the Kyle Shanahan era. Over the course of the past 10 years, the NFL has gone through different ebbs and flows, but Shanahan has always been a run-centric guy. I don't want to say run first because sometimes you've got to pass first to set up the run. But Shanahan, I think, even during the air raid revolution, realized that running the ball could be something where he's zagging where the rest of the league is zigging. I think what we're seeing now, the complexity of coverages in the NFL, where defensive coordinators are starting to evolve and really take advantage. I think the adaptable defenses, Nicky Manwari, the rookie out of South Carolina who delivered in such a big way for the Seattle Seahawks this past season, Nicky Manwari and that Mike McDonald defense are a great example of this. I don't think that you can win consistently in this league if you're passing without balance more than 30 times a game. I think that these defenses are becoming too sophisticated in the way that they can muddy the picture for passing games and for quarterbacks. I think that running the football to take pressure off of the QB and to take pressure off of the offensive line, trying to block some of these ultra athletic edge rushers, is more important than ever. And I think that, the league, which might have been trending toward heavy pass first about 5-6 years ago, even while the 49ers obviously were doing their run-centric thing, which I think allowed them to take advantage of defenses who are primarily built to run and to defend off the pass. I think now it's mandatory for teams to be able to throw that balance out there running wise. And, it never fully went away, but you're seeing from the most successful offenses, the most stable offenses in 2025, you're seeing this counter adaptability against these versatile defenses. You saw the 3 tight end stuff from the Rams. You saw the Seattle Seahawks, deep into the playoffs. I know they ultimately lost Zach Charbonnet, but it was a 2 tight end set for the Seattle Seahawks to support Sam Darnold on his way to no turnovers in the postseason. The tight end position also was good for the Seattle Seahawks to complement those receivers. So the 49ers are going to need to follow suit as they're building out their weaponry for Brock Purdy. And that was really a long explanation for me to get to how I think the 49ers need to execute this offseason. I led this title talking about Mike Evans and Brandon Aiyuk and movement coming on both of those fronts. Obviously, when the 49ers signed Aiyuk to the big contract in the 2024 offseason, they were thinking of him as the long-term pillar at that all-important space-making wide receiver position. Obviously, that's not going to work out for San Francisco. The movement there is likely going to be a cut happening on the first day of the new league year, and that falls on March 11th. When the 49ers, and I did a big salary cap update yesterday, but when the 49ers do jettison Brandon Aiyuk, it will almost certainly be with a post-June 1st designation, and I could illustrate how that's going to work so we can talk about the money that's going to free up that the 49ers can reinvest elsewhere. And I think that some of it might go toward Mike Evans because I think that the 49ers want to build a large receiving core. And this happens at both wideout and at tight end. But I think they want to build big weaponry for Brock Purdy because I think that's where he's going to succeed most with the types of throws that he makes and the accuracy and the touch that he possesses downfield. But with Aiyuk, the 49ers are off the hook when it comes to his $27 million guarantee for 2026. They were able to avoid that. Aiyuk didn't fight it. Brandon Aiyuk obviously doesn't want to be with the 49ers. We don't even know if he wants to play football, but we'll see what happens after the 49ers very likely jettison him coming up on March 11th. So all that the 49ers still owe against the salary cap is what they've already paid out, not stuff that was guaranteed into the future that is no longer guaranteed. So that's all illustrated in this signing bonus column right here and in the first option bonus column because Aiyuk did get an option bonus worth about, I think, $24-25 million for the 2025 season. The 49ers might be able to recoup some of that money, maybe even some of the signing bonus money, but that's going to be determined by lawyers later, and it's going to depend on the 49ers' willingness to go to battle there. I think they actually might be willing because I think they are pissed about this entire situation. But as it stands right now, the proration of signing bonus money already paid out to Brandon Aiyuk, nearly $20 million, 3.7 hitting in 2026 against the cap, 3.7 in 2027, 3.7 in 2028. If they cut him post June 1st, that will accelerate. Although the stuff that's in 2027 and 2028 is going to stay ready to hit the cap in 2027. The option bonus money, which hasn't been fully reflected yet, it's going to be slashed down to $4.5 million per year. You can forget about the 9.6 because that money is not going to be coming to Brandon Aiyuk. Be 4.5 per year. Well, 4.5 will hit here in 2026. The 4.5s the rest of the way here will all accelerate and hit in 2027. Essentially, the post June 1st designation will build a dam after 2026 to make sure that the dead money doesn't rush to all hit here in 2026. The final result of this will be that Brandon Aiyuk's cap number right now is 14.6 million. The 49ers will take on only about 8.2 or 8.3 million of dead money in this 2026 salary cap season, which means they'll take on the rest of it next season, but they'll open up this total right here, $6.3 million in 2026. Now, the $6.3 million that the 49ers will open up with the Brandon Aiyuk post-June 1st release is going to show up like this on the 49ers salary cap. You can see $55.4 million on the cap that the NFL released the other day, $1 million. I need to amend that right here. I think it's $301.2 million. We made the video about it yesterday. 49ers will have some carryovers, so they're going to have about $332 million to work with. Aiyuk's cap hit will go down to, and we don't currently have him. He's right here. Aiyuk's cap hit will go to about $8 million, and the 49ers will have a little bit over $50 million in space to work with. Here we go. $51.2 million in space to work with. Now, if they recoup some of that money with the Brandon Aiyuk situation that has already been paid out to him and they get a salary cap credit later, maybe a little bit more, but I don't think that credit will come in until the next year. It's going to take a while to be adjudicated. Either way, the 49ers will have over $50 million to work with this season, with an obvious need to carry over beyond 2026. All right, so that takes us to the free agent market. I think if you're trying to build a set of weaponry for Brock Purdy that highlights size in a big way, Mike Evans is somebody that you absolutely have to look at. Now, would you sign Mike Evans at absolutely any price? No. I think that the Mike Evans is a player who's declined in snap count over the course of the past 4 seasons. He did start his NFL career with 11 straight seasons of 1,000 or more receiving yards, which ties Jerry Rice for the NFL record. So he was a model of consistency for a long time. I'm not exactly sure that Mike Evans is somebody that could be relied upon to go for 1,000 or more snaps moving forward. I think that he's somebody that you have to look at as a Cooper Kupp when the Seattle Seahawks signed him, a formerly great receiver who might have quite a bit left in the tank to help the team, but maybe not somebody that you can build your receiving foundation around for the 2025 season, for 26 season. For that reason, you've got Ricky Pearsall on the team, and I know that that's been flimsy for the 49ers as well, but he's really damn good, and he was a first-round draft pick, and at some point, you're going to need him to deliver a full season's worth of production, and I think that make-or-break point is this next season. If you can bring Mike Evans in at $15 million a year, that's the rate that Cooper Kupp went to the Seattle Seahawks, 3 years, $45 million. I think that as the 49ers, you have not overextended yourself to firm reliance on Evans to even be the number 2. I think that that's a more expensive number 3 price, but at the spot that the 49ers are at following their cap reset, in the midst of it, really, I mean, they're still going to try to get younger this year with the NFL draft. If you are able to get Mike Evans for $15 a year, that's, I think, what you're willing to pay Jawan Jennings. And I think that you're comfortable slotting Jennings into the number 3, but things get sketchier when he's the number 2 or the number 1. I think that you will have gone a long way toward fortifying this weaponry for Brock Purdy, and that's before we even talk about the NFL draft, where we see the receivers testing this weekend. We're going to have more Casey Concepcion numbers. That's our favorite receiver. I think that his size metrics, he was a little bit stronger and heavier than people realized. Those came out today at the NFL Combine. I think that that's going to be solid for the 49ers, probably somebody who has a chance to be available at number 27. But you can dip into that receiver NFL draft pool You can obviously dip into the tight end NFL draft pool. That one is really strong, and that's the one that we're talking about at the top of the show. And you can even dip into the tight end free agency pool, where I think that there is reliable talent to be had if you're worried about somebody being able to plug in right away. That's why I bring in Charlie Kolar's name. Mike Kolar, 6'6". Mike Evans, 6'5". If the 49ers can bring in two big targets this offseason to pair well with the pillows that Brock Purdy is able to deliver, pinpoint accuracy, some of those throws that he likes to put up there for receivers to go and get. I mean, Jawan Jennings had a lot of success working with Brock Purdy on those types of throws. That's just how it's the style that Purdy has worked with since Iowa State. Then I think that you could open yourself up to draft any size. Casey Concepcion is 5'11", for example. You could work any size at some of those other fill-in explosiveness wide receiver positions. You're working for spacing if you're San Francisco, and then you're working for one-on-one catchability if you're the 49ers. If that spacing isn't there, well, the receiver better be like Mike Evans, and he better be able to make the grab even with a defender or defenders very, very close to him, because typically you're not going to be working with very, very big windows in the NFL. So extra money coming. That Brandon Aiyuk release is going to happen in all likelihood on March 11th. 49ers can get busy on several different fronts to pick up the weaponry for Brock Purdy. And this article is currently ready up on the San Francisco Standard. Our State of the 49ers quarterback edition is up. Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, the NFL's best duo. So why should the 49ers break it up? I asked a serious question. I mean, look at this. We got so many fascinating data points coming out of this 2025 season. And I mean, this relates to the receiver position, even if we start talking about Mac a little bit, because Mac, I mean, he played 8 of the games last season. Mac was absolutely fantastic for the 49ers. The fact that San Francisco was able to get this kind of production, as I struggle to open up the range, this kind of production from its quarterback room, despite the obvious limitations of their weaponry in 2025, is such a massive arrow up for what the 49ers might be able to accomplish moving forward if they can just fortify who these two guys are throwing to, fortify the run game around them. I mean, they have theoretically the most difficult piece to figure out is the quarterback position, right? 49ers have that more than figured out. Now, if you go ahead and trade Mac Jones, if you're blown away by an offer, there's a reason why the 49ers don't want to move for pennies here, because Mac Jones is a lot of value, finished in the top 10 in QBR. But if you, I mean, look at what San Francisco has right now as we speak in that quarterback room. It is the envy of the league, the depth and the quality of play that the 49ers are getting there. If you could find a way to give Purdy and Jones, and you would hope Purdy to starting all the games, but you don't often in this league get the luxury of no injuries. If you can give them what Stafford had as a supporting cast, if you can give them what Darnold had as a supporting cast, what Jordan Love had as a supporting cast, and Romeo Doubs, one of Jordan Love's receivers of the Packers, he's going to be a free agent. If you can, essentially any of the guys in the upper right, they had way, way, way more to work with than Brock Purdy and Mac Jones this past season because of injuries, because of the Aiyuk situation, because of all that. If you can just fortify the weaponry, the 49ers can have the best offense in the league because they have the most difficult part figured out. I mean, check this out. Some of these numbers just need to be put out back in front of people to remind them of how good the 49ers have it at the most important position. This is quarterback efficiency, quarterback numbers, quarterback accuracy since 2022, since Brock Purdy entered the league. Yes, that is Brock Purdy at number one with wide margins in every single category between him and number two. As I said on X, only facts allowed here. The feelings can stay everywhere else. The You watch the tape. If you understand what's actually happening at the margins in the NFL, if you're not just overly obsessed with 6'5" stature and one 40-yard laser every 2 weeks, if you're actually watching sack avoidance, if you're watching the important glue pickups in the margins, somebody who can avoid a sack that would make it 2nd and 18, but instead turns it into 2nd and 6 with a small pickup, but one that avoids the negative play. That's good quarterbacking. And the 49ers have gotten top-level quarterbacking ever since Brock Purdy burst onto the scene in 2022. So now give this guy some weapons. I mean, he expanded his lead efficiency-wise over the field this past season because he was number 2 in the league in EPA per play. But give this man some proper weaponry, get the 49ers run game back. That starts with the blocking outside of the offensive line. That was the biggest problem last year. Look at this tight end class. Look at a big, another benefit of big wide receivers is that those guys are better blockers. Find a way to get the run game back in the top 5. I've already talked about Kenneth Gainwell at the running back position. I've talked about the two-headed monster with Christian McCaffrey that I think the 49ers probably need to establish with a veteran back instead of another third-round pick there. Get that run game on track. Find ways to fortify Brock Purdy with receivers who he's going to be extremely comfortable throwing to. So I go back to Kolar at Iowa State, but I just talk about big receivers in general and increase that spacing and use the fact that you've got a bunch of athletic freaks coming out of this 2026 draft class. And I think that the 49ers are going to be well set offensively. And I think that they can truly push resources into the offensive construction this year. Obviously they're interested in Max Crosby. We don't know if the Raiders are going to trade him. We don't know if the Raiders are going to budge off of the initial ridiculous asking price. We'll sit here and we'll wait for that over the course of the next several days. By the way, this is the 1-year anniversary today, the Saturday of the NFL Combine that saw Deebo Samuel traded from the 49ers to Washington. So trades, right now as Combine business is wrapping up with about a week before free agency, this is the type of stretch where movement typically has happened in the past. So we'll be waiting patiently before the floodgates open about a week from now. Yeah, about not this Monday, but the next is when that legal tampering window opens. But the opportunities for the 49ers to truly push in a lot of chips on the offensive side of the ball will be there. And, if they don't get Max Crosby, even if they don't make big defensive signings, which wouldn't shock me because I look at the Rams model and I see a team that pushed a ton of resources into the offense and then let the defense be one highlighted by youth, highlighted by speed, highlighted by hunger. 49ers may take that same path with Raheem Morris now as their defensive coordinator. It would surprise me if the 49ers didn't invest some significant resources into the offensive side of the ball. The first of which may have to come to Trent Williams to make sure that he's taken care of and locking down that left tackle position in 2026. All right, we've been talking for a little bit. Why don't we open this up to some questions? Those of you who just joined the show, we're looking at Sam Roush's blocking highlights from the Senior Bowl, the Stanford tight end. And those are all the types of blocks behind the line of scrimmage, crossing over the formation that the 49ers expect a lot out of, like H-back-like blocks from their tight ends, the ability to work in line, not just in space, but also in line. They, I think, struggled both in line and in space. Just lost my mic there. This thing just slipped down. But they struggled both in line and in space this past season beyond the 5 offensive linemen. They need better blocking from their tight ends and from the players on the perimeter. Let's see if Mike has anything to say first. No, he doesn't. Let's go to the comment section. Daniel thinks that Max Crosby will not happen, but possibly Thibodeau from New York. I talked about that yesterday. That'd be a cheaper addition. Now, the difference, though, is that Max Crosby already has a contract. Kayvon Thibodeau doesn't. He's not as good of a player as Max Crosby either. I will say that Kayvon Thibodeau had his best season in run defense this past year. So maybe he's becoming a more complete player. He had 13 sacks a couple seasons ago, hadn't been near that number since then. He's on the final year of his rookie deal. It's a 5th-year option at about $13-14 million. So if you trade for Kayvon Thibodeau, it's probably only going to cost a mid-round pick, but he would need a new contract. It would have to be somebody that you do believe in and are pushing chips into the middle of the table for. Not all your chips. It's not going to be that expensive of a player, but he will be a pricey player. It's not just going to be that 5th-year option. I think that you would have to re-sign Kayvon Thibodeau if you did trade for him. Now, he's an Oregon guy, and I know that we were talking about fellow Oregon guy Kenyon Sadiq, who just lit up the combine with his numbers. Those are the numbers again. So maybe we're going to be talking about a lot of Oregon Ducks. The 49ers, John Lynch has a very good relationship with Dan Lanning, who's Oregon's head coach. And they drafted Jordan James last year, the running back. That was later on. That was down in the 5th round. But I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers went back to that Oregon well. The Oregon Pro Day, it's always a good day to see how many 49ers executives make it up to Eugene. But they do have a very, very good relationship with that program. This is... Yeah, the Raiders probably right now, as of right now, they are asking too much for Max Crosby. That's why he hadn't been moved yet. But we're not at a deadline yet at this point. So let's just wait and see. I know that there's a lot of impatience. It's the last day of February. The new league year begins March 11th. That's going to see a lot more movement. Let's just hold tight. Let's see what happens. Like I said, it was this Saturday last year in the evening when Deebo Samuel was traded from the 49ers to Washington. So finally, we began to see some movement, and maybe some movement's going to begin here in the next few days. Yeah, you should always ask for more than you really want. That is true. Rule number 1 in negotiating. You say that Kyle always sets his QBs up for success. Hence Mullins. I don't think Nick Mullins was all that successful, was he? I mean, yeah, he threw for a bunch of yards, but the 49ers went 4-12 in 2018. His scores weren't very good, like Nick Mullins. Jimmy Garoppolo was good. I mean, there have been really, I would say, 3 successful quarterbacks under Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers in 10 years. Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, and Mac Jones. Sam Darnold didn't play, but that was a success, obviously, the turnaround story, but he didn't really play for the 49ers. But you had a lot of quarterbacks under Shanahan who haven't necessarily performed for the 49ers. Like Brian Hoyer, Nick Mullins, as you said, Mullins wasn't very good. Like, just look at the numbers. Mullins below average in essentially everything. And I'm looking at actual efficiency numbers. Don't toss raw yardage into my face because that's not determining anything. CJ Beathard, Trey Lance. They used the top 5 pick on Trey Lance, and he didn't perform efficiently for the 49ers. Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, some of the backups in some of these years. Josh Johnson was a very quick cup of coffee, at least on the field for the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. I mean, more quarterbacks have performed inefficiently than efficiently under Kyle Shanahan. Again, the 3 who have performed well are Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, and Mac Jones. So the point is that you need, like, Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. But the idea that all you need is Kyle Shanahan and any quarterback is just not true. Because if that were true, then the 49ers would have just stuck with Brian Hoyer forever after 2017. You need both. You need a good play caller. The 49ers have that in Kyle Shanahan. And you need talent at the quarterback position. And they really, really have that in both of their guys this year, Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. And that is what I wrote about up here, right up here on the San Francisco Standard. Article is available for you today. I'm going to send it over to Mike. Maybe he can put it into the description. This is the State of the 49ers quarterback edition. So we look at absolutely everything as it pertains to QB. And, I wonder what the 49ers price might be for Mac Jones. Will any team meet it? I think only the Minnesota Vikings really make sense. So there's a good chance that Mac is back with the 49ers in 2026. As Kyle Shanahan said, he'd be very surprised Mac Jones isn't with San Francisco next season. This is what the piece looks like. Look, we compare Brock and Mac. Brock better across essentially every category. And the ones that are cumulative, he definitely had the edge over Mac Jones. But both of these quarterbacks were impressive for the 49ers, both in the upper right. Brock finished number 2 in QBR. Mac Jones was number 9, ahead of even Lamar Jackson. This is Purdy at top of the list of quarterback play since 2022. This is good too right here. Maybe I could get this up on the screen for everybody. This is a look at Brock Purdy year over year, so you can compare it to how he was in 2023. Purdy's 2025 season was his second best with the 49ers. His interception rate was higher, but there's context behind every interception, and obviously the risks that he took and some of the downsides that he incurred because of them were justified by the eventual reward. In EPA per play, expected points added per play, this is going to include you're punished for interceptions in this stat. Look how dark blue everything is here. Remember, darker the blue, the further above average. He led the league in 2023. That was an otherworldly year. Those were historically good numbers in 2023 for Brock Purdy. In 2025, he was number 2. Still really good. Better than 2022, better than 2024, when there was some real dysfunction in 2024. I mean, they had issues weaponry-wise in both 2024 and 2025, but things got a little bit better because Christian McCaffrey was back as the fallback for the 49ers in 2025. Last year, it's impressive to me that Purdy was still able to be at 7.3 adjusted net yards an attempt. Anything over 7 is really good. And Purdy's been able to do that, but they lost a lot of explosiveness offensively this year. That's something that needs to be built back up. But what EPA tells you, the fact that the EPA was higher than 2024, even though the adjusted net yards per attempt was lower, it tells you that Brock Purdy is doing the stuff at the margins, the hidden stuff, really well. He's converting the third downs. He's setting himself up for good third down opportunities by what he does on first and second down. I mean, the most staggering number, the most staggering chart from the 2025 season is the third down chart. You could see where Purdy is on this one right here. Okay, you don't see him right. This is by design. It's where Mac Jones is. He's right in the middle, right? All the quarterbacks are clustered here. You want to be further to the right and further up. Where's Brock? He's up there. This is how he performed on third and fourth down in 2025. The quarterback's down, head and shoulders above the rest of the league. And the reason that I bring this up and want to continue contextualizing this is because the 49ers, they have this at QB, give this weapons, and you will see an MVP award. You'll probably see a Super Bowl. Give this weapons and give this a competent defense. And I mean, look at the results in 2023. They just didn't have the special teams unit to win a Super Bowl that year. That was unfortunate. But I think they got that largely fixed in 2025. Maintain the progress on special teams. Get that defense back to a level of real respectability with health. And get the weaponry back for Brock Purdy. And it's not surprising that this guy has seen top-level success because of how he performs on third down, because of how he meshes with Kyle Shanahan. The 49ers have the quarterback situation figured out. They are in a very, very good position because of that. Again, since 2022. Don't argue with me. Go argue with a wall if you don't like this. These are numbers. These are facts. This is demonstrated efficiency. Football's a meritocracy. Brock Purdy has earned this top-of-the-league respect, and now the 49ers need to give him the weaponry that can really leverage this success into another run at a Super Bowl. I think Mike Evans would fit well, but at a right price. Mike Evans goes out and makes 22, 23 million a year. I don't know if that really makes sense for the 49ers. At a Cooper Kupp level, 15 million a year, that makes sense. With Brandon Aiyuk coming off the books with 6.3 million in 2026 space opening up, with a lot more in the bigger picture opening up because they no longer owe him the 2026 guarantees. Somebody like Mike Evans could come much closer to the 49ers range of affordability. And then, I love scouring that tight end market at both the draft and the free agent levels for tall targets to make sure that Brock Purdy is set up with the types of receivers with whom he can most thrive. But when you have a quarterback who's performed as well as he has, you have to tailor the weaponry precisely to him. A lot of people ask me, will Deebo Samuel fit? Like, didn't the 49ers jettison Deebo Samuel because he wasn't the best Brock Purdy fit? And today I say yes. But Deebo Samuel at 18 million or whatever it was in 2025, that didn't fit with Brock Purdy, with the 49ers. Somebody likes to push the ball downfield more. Deebo Samuel at 5 to 10 million, if that's what the price ends up being, you could see how that would fit because you then have the money to make other moves. And I think Deebo as a weapon complement to Christian McCaffrey, alternating between the backfield and just giving the 49ers some real adaptability, a chess piece like they used them before. At the right price, like, of course, you kick the tires on that. But at the wrong price, you say thanks, but no thanks. There are a lot of guys, Omar Cooper being another one of them, who are nice and versatile coming out of the draft. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be available, but there are a lot of guys with whom the 49ers can replenish this team at a lower price, that they have to allocate their money in a smart way. And that's why I talk about certain restrictions for where they might go spending-wise for players like Mike Evans and Deebo Samuel, the veterans in this National Football League who are officially going to come available on March 11th. You can start negotiating with them, though, on March 9th. That is the opening of the legal tampering window. I'm not beating the drum for a Deebo return, guys. I'm sitting here analyzing strategy. That's what I always do. I don't beat the drum for anything. I sit here talking about strategy. I look at actual results. I base what I talk about in data, which is why people, I think, like the channel. I talk a lot about finances and numbers. That's why we put stuff like this up and Brandon Aiyuk's salary cap hits. I talk about player value as it relates to the production that they're putting up on the field. I talk about scheme. I talk about X's and O's, which is why we put tape like some of this tape up on the screen. This is Sam Roush. I try to combine everything because football is a complicated sport. The NFL, with its monetary rules, makes it even more complex. I try to talk about everything, put it under one hood, and give you guys the 49ers strategic thinking and possibilities moving forward. So I'm not beating the drum for anybody's return, but I am saying that a player like Deebo Samuel in a league that cherishes adaptability, where defenses are getting more and more adaptable, so you want to make sure that you could still counter as an offense at the right price, it's obviously somebody the 49ers would be interested in. He wasn't available at the right price in 2025, which is why the 49ers traded him. They're able to get a fifth-round pick in return. I think it was good business for the 49ers. Moving forward, it's never about firmly ruling anyone out unless there are obviously extenuating circumstances. It's always about the gray area and figuring out where the value lies. And so often we've got, people on social media saying never, 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 or 100% they have to do this. And the truth never fits into those things because football is not a black and white situation. There's several different positions. There's a salary cap. There is an interflow between the positions that you have to establish to develop a championship team. There are complicated schematics which lead to complex strategy. And that's why I sit here for 40 minutes at a time on some of these shows trying to talk about the nuances behind it all. Because if you're just trying to operate 1 + 1 = 2, you're never going to build a good football team, and you're never going to fully appreciate and understand how the NFL works and how the 49ers have seen quite a bit of success. And to be honest, how they can take this the next level to win a Super Bowl. That's why I sit here and talk about strategy. It has to, it is a complicated thing. You guys can't just simplify it down to don't beat the drum for Deebo Samuel. I'm telling you guys how the 49ers should be and might be and are thinking about some of these things. And I guarantee you that these are conversations that they're having in their building. Why get rid of him when they know they're going to try to get him back? They didn't know they were going to try to get him back, and I don't even know if they're trying to get him back this year for sure. I know that they're having conversations. They got a 5th-round pick in return for Deebo Samuel, and they got out of $18 million that he would have made last year. They were able to free up a lot of cap space, set themselves up to pay multiple different players, and they got a 5th-round draft pick for Deebo Samuel. It made all the sense in the world last year because he was still an $18 million player in the estimation of the Washington Commanders. Now, if Deebo Samuel is a $5 million player, yeah, sure. I think the 49ers will have very, very serious discussions about bringing him back. If he's a $12 to $15 million player, probably not. But they got the draft pick and they freed themselves of an $18 million commitment last year. So, guys, like, at every step of this, like, stuff evolves and you can get a benefit by releasing a guy or trading a guy or signing a guy here that you might not necessarily be able to get in a year. Realities change over 365 days. It's been a year since San Francisco did trade Deebo Samuel to the Commanders, and you simply adapt based on your new reality. It's a fair question, but I hope that I answered it in a good way. Strategize on how to beat the Rams and the Seahawks. Adaptability. I think you have, especially the Seahawks. They have a better defense than the Rams. You have to be adaptable as an offense. They've got Eman Worry. You could play like every single position. You have to be adaptable as an offense. See, this is another oversimplification. Old and slow doesn't help the 49ers get better at receiver. I'm not telling the 49ers to get slower at receiver. I'm saying that there could be value in bringing Deebo Samuel in as an offensive weapon, and that's not the only move that they would make if they can get Deebo Samuel at the right price. They're not going to bring in Deebo Samuel if it's what they deem to be the wrong price. So this blanket thinking, you can think how you want. I'm not going to say it has to stop, but you're never going to understand how the NFL works or how the 49ers work if you're just saying, oh, well, they brought in one guy who, I didn't want them to bring back. That must mean they're getting older and slower, and that must mean they're calling it a day for the offseason. This team has no chance. That's not how the league works. You can bring in pieces for smaller roles than the roles that they occupied before, and then bring in other pieces that make the team faster and younger or whatever you need. So it's not this end all be all with one potential move. It's a dynamic puzzle that the 49ers are trying to complete, and blanket statements from the outside really, really don't give us any insight. That's why I don't sit here and just clickbait you to death with quick videos that just say one thing and don't take into account the full picture. All right, guys, I've got to get going. Everybody, thanks for watching. It's been a fun show. Hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you soon.